have not been to Minnesota in probably 20 years.
Bring gas. Welcome to Flagrant Howls, a Minnesota Timberwolves lifestyle podcast.
Gentlemen, a late night Game 4 recap here, or early morning, depending on how you want to look at it. It's Mackey, it's the sports dad, Judd, it's executive producer, Dex, and eventually we will put Kyle Tigey in the mix here as well. A 117-110 victory, and the Wolves have a commanding 3-1 lead. And I think my recommendation is a celebratory Brixworth for the audience tonight. And if you haven't dabbled in Brixworth, either in the North Loop location, just steps away from Target Center, or if you haven't grabbed one of their beers in a liquor store somewhere, you should check them out. Brixworth is a great place to gather before Wolves games, even for away games. There's always fellow Wolves fans bellied up and ready to watch a game. The Nasreed Signature Hazy IPA, some of the best dry rub wings and Detroit-style pizza in town. Brixworth in the North Loop is perfect for home and away games. Check them out. They also brew their own craft beer at the OG Burnsville location, so you can check those out as well here. Judd, we'll start with you. Your main takeaway from a big Game 4 win in the Bay Area tonight.
My main takeaway is that the Wolves went to San Francisco and took care of business in both games in a similar fashion, which is first halves were close, these games were close, and then they weren't close. But tonight it was Ant again. I mean, the three that he hit while double teamed by Draymond and Payton at the end of the first half, which he had no business making, but he did, set the tone for a third quarter in which the Wolves absolutely ran laps around Golden State. They outscored them 39-17. Ant had 16 of his 30 points in that quarter. This is what a star player does. This is what a star player who doesn't feel our pent-up angst does. He doesn't feel the Minnesota angst. And as I texted you guys, to me, this is very close to like Puckett. Puckett didn't feel that. Puckett felt, oh, pressure? Oh, awesome. I'm going to enjoy this. And we're all on pins and needles, and we're all concerned. And he's not. Is Ant perfect every single quarter of every single basketball game? Absolutely not. Is Ant there to take control when you absolutely have to have it? Yes. And this is why, again, to go back to the great debate about has Ant passed Garnett, in my opinion, he has. Because there are very few players in the history of this state who have done what Ant can do, which is he looks at pressure, and he doesn't say pressure's a privilege. He says, screw pressure. I'll show you pressure. And he knocks down shots. And tonight he did that again. And because of that, the Wolves essentially had a very comfortable second half because he was so good in the third quarter.
Well, I think what's amazing is there's like, I'm 32. I remember Kirby. I obviously remember when he passed away. I remember more of his post-playing career than, because he retired from baseball when I was like 3 or 4. So I have no real recollection of actual Kirby Puckett. But for Minnesota sports fans that like were born around my time, the people that they probably associate success to are KG, Randy Moss, and then like the list kind of gets really interesting there. Like afterwards with the Wild, it's like Gabrick and Parise, which are still like a notch down. So I think when Judd says he is Kirby Puckett to a whole generation of sports fans who I think know the name, but also like, I don't think I'm still trying to come to terms with that dude, this guy has the Wolves one game away from going to back-to-back conference finals. I mean, how many regular season players, Joe Mauer being like a Hall of Famer, but, really failed to deliver in the postseason, and his team was more to blame than that. It's amazing what we're watching here, because I think a lot of us in Minnesota sports aren't realizing the gravitational pull that Ant has right now.
I'll echo what Dex said. For the sports dad of all people who, like Declan doesn't remember the Puckett era, kind of briefly remembers as a kid, maybe like the peak of the KG era. I lived through the entire KG era, and I've been hesitant to say, I think we should slow down a little bit on some of the crowning of Anthony Edwards as the number one player in franchise history. But the one thing that he has that KG did not have. KG was an incredible all-around basketball player. He was one of the most versatile big men that's ever stepped foot in the NBA. 7 feet tall. At the time, there wasn't really as much three-point shooting, but he's knocking down 20-foot jumpers. He's got a handle. He's running the offense. He's all NBA defense, shot blocker, like durability, all those things. But he didn't take over games offensively in the way that Ant does. KG was a good offensive player, and he'd settle in. He was a playmaker. And, if he scored 30 points, it was a huge night offensively for KG. But he didn't have the ability to go on these crazy runs. Like Anthony Edwards, the 2 threes he hit in the last minute of the first half, and then the barrage in the third quarter. Like, you could argue that Anthony Edwards' heat check barrage in the third quarter ended the series tonight. Like, this is kind of close. They're hanging around. If they can steal one and get it to a game 6, and then Curry comes back, 5 minutes later, bang, bang, three-pointer from the left wing, three-pointer from the top of the key, dribble drive, foul, series over. Knock on wood. We'll see what happens. They have to close it out. He has that ability, and KG didn't. Let's get Kyle in here, too, because Kyle was the one texting during the game. Emergency top 100 Wolves of all time committee meeting. So, I don't know if you let that committee meeting commence, right? Judd wants to put him number 1.
Yep.
I petitioned to move Julius Randle to number 2, maybe ahead of KG. Both those guys. Let's just change the whole thing up.
Are we doing a MyBookie read? Because MyBookie was sweating 5.5 there. When the Timberwolves were up 20 with 5 minutes left, that was the worst 5 minutes of basketball I've ever watched. The Julius thing, I was texting you because we do need to do the update. We got to get Judd in. We got to get Dex in. I said this after game 3. I don't know if you guys have a player covering the Vikings, the Twins. Have you ever been more wrong about a player in your life, your fandom, than you have been about Julius Randle? I mean, I think about when he wouldn't throw Rudy the ball in Toronto, and then the bad body language. And now in that first quarter, that first half, when the Wolves were I thought they played really bad, he was their best player by a mile. Obviously, Ant took them to the finish line in the third quarter. A lot of good defense, but holy cow, Julius Randle, get that extension ready, because I think his kids are going to be living in Minnesota for a long time.
I feel like if I was to apologize and I was told you can only apologize to one guy, one person, my apology actually again would go to Tim Conley, because Julius got off to a rough start, partially his fault, partially timing of the trade. But let's look at what Julius is bringing, and they did touch on it briefly, I think, in tonight's telecast. But what Julius is bringing is a playoff type of player. Like, he's perfect for this series. Like, these games are in the mud. These games are difficult, and he thrives there. And so, again, it's Tim Conley's ability to identify these things, which 6 months ago were like, what, huh? And now Julius' start tonight was huge because it kept the Wolves around. It was a close game. Ant didn't get off to a great start. In fact, I believe that he had more points I think he had 14 points total, including the threes that Phil talked about in the first half, and 16 points in the third quarter. But when you watch Julius, he got hot from the field, but he also does all of these other things. He does so much. So I would actually apologize more because, again, Tim Conley, for the second time with a major trade where we were all like, what, huh? Okay, what? Again? Come again? Tim Conley, 10 steps ahead, sort of knowing what this could look like. He had a vision that the majority of us probably did not see.
Can I throw a theory out, too, that, there's a million X's and O's things that are fun to break down in the series, but there's a psychological warfare game that gets played in these series as well. And a year and a half ago, Draymond Green choked out Rudy Gobert while trash talking Karl Anthony Towns on podcasts throughout the rest of the year and clowning those guys on TNT. And Draymond Green said what he said about Karl Anthony Towns taking some time off to be with family, which was uncalled for. But Draymond Green and the Warriors had zero respect for the Karl Anthony Towns, Rudy Gobert version of the Timberwolves a year ago. I think Julius brings a level of don't F with us that Carl didn't and doesn't. And by the way, Carl's having a nice little series for the most part against Boston, and the Knicks are likely to close that out without Jason Tatum. So they're going to advance to the Eastern Conference Finals. It's been a great trade for them. But you haven't heard a whole lot from, like, the biggest chirping from Draymond Green is toward officials and a fan. You haven't heard a whole lot from Jimmy in the series. You haven't heard a whole lot from Draymond. And I think Julius's presence, both like physically on the court and just like as an enforcer, almost a hockey style enforcer type personality to not be messed with, is helping the Wolves win the psychological warfare of the series. Is that a hot take, Kyle?
No. I've been watching that Knicks Celtics series, and Cat's been really good, but he still had some of the same. I think some of his blemishes just get amplified on this team, on the Wolves, whereas like his blemishes are more covered up in New York with the way that they play and their wings and with Brunson. So I just think the Randle stuff, man, he just sets a tone. I mean, I hate doing the comps to football again, but he just kind of establishes the run and establishes the line of scrimmage where it's like, okay, now they can't bully us. And I think you're right about like the Draymond stuff. Also, just if we're going to think about moments, how about Rudy getting that awesome block on Draymond? I think he said a lot of French words to him after that. So I haven't seen Draymond really go at anyone on the team. He even fouled Rudy late, I think in the third or fourth. And I think he was like, okay, I'm going to step away here. I'm not going to get in trouble. Mm-hmm. So the Randle stuff, again, I mean, to Judd's point about apologizing, do you remember how bad it was in November? You know, like, why was it bad? Was it taking a while to acclimate? We forget, I think, when he was traded 2 nights before Media Day, Phil, that he was still kind of laboring that shoulder and coming off that big, serious injury. So without him, man, I don't know how you would be in the spot you are. But Carl, you know, Julius, whatever, he's still also on the night of the lottery. We should remember, like, they get this first-round pick coming from Detroit, which will help. And you got Dante, who I thought was better tonight. So just an incredible trade. I apologize to Tim Connolly as well because I did not see this one hitting like it did so far.
Do you know what I love about this, though? And this in sports is so fun to watch from the end of it being your team is this. Golden State, they're without Curry. They're already old. They're tired. And you can sort of see the inevitability of them. They're in the corner right now, trying to sort of fend off the Wolves, right? Like they're trying to block the punches. And the Wolves are playing, the first half, okay. They're doing okay. Golden State's okay. And then in the third quarter, the Wolves come out and haymaker their ass. And you can see the will to play goes away. I love this. This will be known, I don't think in 5 years, I don't think that this will be known as the series in which, Golden State didn't have Steph. Let's forget about that. This will be known as the end of the run. This will be like, look at how old and tired this team looks. And look, they traded for Butler. They took a shot. Good for them, I guess. But like that third quarter, there's nothing more fun in some ways than at the end of a great team, in my opinion, seeing the life just drain from them. And I feel like Golden State, the life, like you looked at them and their expressions, and there was just an inevitable, we're screwed here. And it's in Draymond's face. It's in Jimmy's face. It's across the board. I really think that this will be the series that will be remembered as when Golden State had to hit a reset button. Well, and I'm enjoying it, to be honest.
It's especially in Jimmy's face. Jimmy, all right, Steph's out, man. And you guys are having a hell of a time getting to 100 points. And congrats to the Warriors. They found 100 points tonight. They scored thanks to the Wolves. Just kind of checking out of that game with about
way to go, Warriors.
3.5 minutes left. But
yeah.
Why is Jimmy Butler in 34 minutes taking 9 shots in that game? Mm-hmm. And I know some of it is strategic, like Rudy Gobert is dropping back into the paint when Jimmy Butler is driving, and Jimmy Butler thinks twice and he tries to play facilitator. But Jimmy was a team worst minus 30 tonight in 34 minutes.
Is this not, you guys, in fact, this is atop my notes. Is there not, how delicious is this 7 years after the fact that this badass, biggest badass in the gym, target center, I'm going to show these guys. I'm going to show them what's what. You effing need me, right? 7 years after the fact, he's become a beta against the very team that he tried to push around. I can't stand the guy. I honestly can't stand him. Draymond is a bully, and there's a lot about, but Jimmy Butler is one of the most manipulative. He's charming when he wants to be in a complete a-hole at times. He turned on a team and a coach who traded for him, right? Tibbs acquired, that was his guy. And he literally came in the gym in year 2 and said, I don't like these guys. I don't like Wiggins that much. I sure don't like Cat. And now at the age of 35, he's an old man who looks absolutely desperate. And the team that's stomping on his throat is the Timberwolves. I love this. This is karma come full circle. There's no better team to put his lights out than the Minnesota Timberwolves.
And, I love that rant. That's a great
I was just saying,
rant
holy
right there.
bleep, just
Hall
put
of
that
Fame
into a
Judd stuff.
clip and like send it and then grind it up
Written
and put it in
down.
my bloodstream.
But
I've
if
never
you're the
seen Judd that
Warriors,
mad.
if you're
I
the
love it.
Warriors after tonight, don't you have buyer's remorse? Wait a second. Obviously, he was. The acquisition was for him to be the number 2 next to Steph, kind of in the pecking order, and these guys were going to ride together. And I get that if you're Jimmy and you've been grinding out this career and you've had some close calls with championships and you've yet to fully climb to the top of that mountain, and it's probably exasperating when Steph goes down with the hamstring and you don't know if he's going to come back, and it's oh man, woe is me, bad luck. But like, they need you right now, dude. There's a bunch of dudes running around that can't get a shot off, can barely score double-digit points. Jonathan Kuminga rises from the dead, being benched a few weeks back to be your biggest offensive spark. Where are you, tough guy? I know people are going to be like, shh, you guys, he's gonna hear this and snap out of it. Well, this would have been the night to snap out of it if you're him. And what you're seeing here is, to Judd's point, it's the end of a dynasty run. And maybe Warriors fans, I've already seen a bunch on Twitter in my algorithm. But if Steph Curry, the Warriors would have closed this out in 5, but if Steph Curry. Well, this is what happens when you don't play a guy for 40 minutes the entire regular season because he's old. And then you play him 40 minutes every game, basically, in the first round against Houston, including 46 minutes in Game 7 with a 48-hour turnaround. Yeah, he's likely to break down. So you probably don't beat Houston if you don't hit that gas pedal like you did with Steph Curry. So I don't really want to hear it. It's kind of an embarrassing way for Jimmy Butler to go out. And the Wolves are going to close this thing out either in Game 5 or maybe it has to go back for a Game 6. And they're going to stack another pelt on the wall of Hall of Famers.
Yeah,
It's pretty crazy.
The first 4 quarters of Game 3 and the first 2 quarters of tonight, so like 6 quarters before the second half, like it was a grind against these Warriors. Even when you have Julius playing really well and Ant's starting to heat up, but maybe slow cooking to a degree. And what I've noticed, especially during that span, especially is, okay, this team in Golden State is clearly way better than that Lakers team that everyone thought was just going to basically get the Wolves out in 5 games. But then for Ant to have the killer DNA, basically, that 3-pointer at the end of the half, and then I believe he told ESPN that Chris Finch told them, like, we're playing like a bunch of losers right now. So Finch went in, basically said, like, do you guys essentially want this? Do you want to go back tied 2-2? And Ant and Julius and everyone basically responds in the way that I think a lot of Minnesota sports fans still probably felt up 20 points like they were still puckered in the fourth quarter, which is, I think, PTSD, and they shouldn't feel like that. But the way they took things over and now have a 3-1 lead and have basically are very close to ending the Warriors dynasty is pretty awesome and crazy to see.
Can we talk about that third quarter? Because I thought in the first half, there was like 4 or 5 moments where Ant got just completely beat defensively. Like, it was pretty bad. Dane Moore had a tweet. He's like, I do wonder if Ant gets in trouble in the huddles for these defensive possessions or if they wait for film session the next day. Not at the arena tonight, but a little birdie who was in that halftime locker room actually texted me, Phil. They did address Ant's defense at half. Like that was something that was brought up at half. And what happened in the first possession of the third quarter on defense? Shot clock violation. And those shots that Ant hit, those threes were awesome, especially the last one to put him up 12. It's like he had a guy completely draped all over him. But it was the defense that really, I mean, that's what this team is. Like, we don't need to argue anymore about what their identity is. Even swapping Carl for Julius, like, their identity is defense. And I'm probably still going to wait until the series is wrapped up, but I will just say that the defense that Jaden, I don't know if you guys are Chrome users or what you use for a browser, but the defense Jaden played on Jimmy in the third quarter was like the stuff you use the incognito tab for, because that was disgusting. You want to talk about Jimmy taking 9 shots? Where were they going to come from? I mean, he tried to find Dante on switches. They did a much better job of not just giving up the switch. I thought that was so bad in game 3 where they're just like, yeah, okay, Dante, you can go guard Jimmy. It's like, no, that's a bad idea. But the neverminds kind of existed with Jaden, where Jimmy would just get in the paint and Jaden would just stay off him, be like, okay, I dare you to shoot it. I have the length to block you. Their defense was insane. The block by Jaden, the block by Rudy. But if they play defense like that, it doesn't matter who the opponent is and how healthy or not. Like, that is championship level defense that they brought in that third quarter.
This was on Jaden real quick. This was a sneaky great Jaden McDaniels game. The defensive stuff that may or may not show up in box scores. And then, cleaning up. He had a couple really nice little drives into the paint, that little mid-range kind of fading jumper that he knocks down for the 10 points. But most importantly, the Wolves were getting smoked on the boards in this game. At halftime, it was a 25-15 rebounding advantage for Golden State, including the Warriors had 9 offensive rebounds at half. And the Warriors only grabbed 13 rebounds the rest of the game out of halftime. And Jaden was the one cleaning up a lot of those possessions. He winds up with 13 rebounds, 12 on the defensive boards, to just put an end to those Warriors possessions. Because on a night where the Wolves are knocking down threes, the only way the Warriors without Steph Curry can win the math battle is with second chance points. If they go grab 15 offensive rebounds and get a bunch of putbacks and get more shots at it. And Jaden McDaniels made sure to clean all that up starting in the third quarter. So, he's had some really good games in these playoffs. He's been super valuable, but this was one of the 2 or 3 best games, all things considered, he's played.
I think he finished with 13 rebounds.
Yep.
He had 1 at half. He had a career-high 12 rebounds in the second half. He did play most of the second half because, again, as our friend Barf would say, they got a little CTE hoops at the end, and they're like, okay, we have to play Jaden even in garbage time because no one else really understands how to defend or dribble the basketball. But he was awesome. Julius started, Ant kind of got him going, and then they closed with that defense. But even Mike Conley tonight, hit a couple big shots. A little better from Dante. Nikhil got going to the rim. Nas was kind of quiet, but if you get 2 of those bench guys going, it's pretty much over because the Warriors have to rely so much on their bench because they're just getting nothing from their starters.
Yeah, and especially the third quarter, to me, of all the quarters that have been played in this series, the third quarter was a great example, too, of the Wolves just literally imposed their will on Golden State. And that's where I feel like Golden State starts to go away because they're like, okay, this is too tough. And I mean, Jimmy Butler, he was passing up shots, too. So, he had decent looks in the paint and he passed. And I can't believe with Steph out that's the game plan. So the Wolves are just a better, more complete team. And when they play with the edge that they especially did in the third quarter, they become incredibly difficult because they wear you down. And that's where the Julius attitude, I think, fits really well, right? Because they didn't have that before. Cat's a really good player and he can do a ton of things, but he didn't have that. I'm going to impose my will. I'm going to make your life hell. And a guy like Draymond probably 10 years back would have been like, this is great, right? Yeah. Draymond don't want the smoke no more. Jimmy don't want the smoke. Who on that Golden State team, aside from the kids who aren't playing, who played when the game was essentially done, but who on that Golden State team wants the smoke? Because the Wolves will bring it. They look
very over it.
Yes.
And
including Steph, too. Steph's just sort of watching it. He's just sort of... He looks like a guy who is like, you know what, if I can't play in game 6, I'm really not going to complain too much.
Well, it's got to be exhausting. I get that if you're this close to the end of your careers within 2 or 3 years, this was supposed to be one of the last chances for all three of these main guys we're talking about to make a run. And then, the main guy goes down, and it's super deflating, even to try and convince yourself, okay, if we can just steal one, then maybe he comes back. Like maybe he comes back at 75%, and he hasn't played in a basketball game or conditioned in 2 weeks. Like it's very futile. I have a big question for you guys, kind of based on the last couple nights in the NBA, especially tonight. After we shout out Neos Elite Performance, Judd, I don't think anyone, there's a couple guys off the bench that could use a little help maybe, but in general, the Wolves are feeling fine, but maybe you're looking to get back on the court.
But Golden State has a bunch of guys who could definitely contact our friends at Neos Elite Performance and get help, because if chronic pain is holding you back, guess what? Neos Elite has cutting-edge regenerative medicine and cellular IV therapy that's designed to get you going again without invasive procedures. This is, folks, white glove service delivered to your home, no trips to the doctors. Neos is going to come to you. Their therapy is designed to reduce pain, restore function, and get you back to doing what you love. Also, if you contact them and reference our flagship show, Purple Daily, you're going to get $500 off a cellular IV therapy treatment. No surgery, no downtime, just results. Schedule now at neoselite.com, Neos Elite.com, for guys like, let's say, Jimmy Butler, Draymond Green. I got the answer for you guys.
That's right. Stoked is also powering this post-game episode of Flagrant Howls here, Judd.
It's gorgeous outside now. It's absolutely barbecue season. And Sports Dad telling you right now that Stoked barbecue pellets, they are fantastic. It's time to get them. A company based right here and run in our great state. Picked up Stoked barbecue pellets, 50-count fire starter buckets, 4-count fire starter bags, and also the barbecue caddy, which is fantastic. They're premium pellets that cook anything you throw on the grill or smoker to delicious perfection. You can find their products at Fratelloni Hardware and Garden Stores. Also, for more dealer locations, check out StokedBBQ.com. That's StokedBBQ.com. And make sure that you are grilling. I got hot takes. You got good food that's delicious and hot because of Stoked barbecue pellets.
Wow, look at this. A tagline master, Judd Solgad.
12:35 in the morning, and I still got it.
Yeah, just throwing fastballs for our advertising partners. So I'll set this up by saying that since January 1st, only 3 teams have a better net rating than the Timberwolves. Those 3 teams are Boston, down 3-1 to the Knicks. Jason Tatum was carted out on a wheelchair. Yeah, so it just doesn't look like he's playing anytime soon, unless he's just channeling his inner Paul Pierce. We'll find out. But Boston's on the ropes. Doesn't look good. Cleveland was another one of those teams above the Wolves in net rating. Well, they're getting punked, down 3-1. Donovan Mitchell re-aggravated with the ankle injury, so he's out. And then Oklahoma City, who the Wolves actually fared really well against in the regular season, and they're in a war right now, 2-2 against Denver. So there's a good chance that on the Eastern Conference side of the bracket, the only 2 teams better than the Timberwolves regular season since January 1st are going to be out before the conference finals. And then we'll see what happens the rest of the way in the West. But the Wolves are up 3-1, looking likely to go back to the Western Conference Finals. Kyle, it feels like the Wolves have an incredible chance to win the championship right now. I don't want to get too far ahead, but it is wide open. And the crazy thing is we've barely seen the Wolves A game in the playoffs. Like tonight they were hitting some threes. This was probably the second best game they've played in the playoffs so far, but this is as good of a chance as they've had looking at the bracket in the history of the franchise.
I was scrolling through tweets while Judd was telling me smoked meats, and I saw one that said the Wolves are 9 wins away from an NBA championship, which kind of hit me. So that you set that up well. I'd like to close out Wednesday. This team had 2 big things this season where it was they don't play well in clutch time and they don't take their lesser opponent seriously. We saw it tonight for the third quarter, but then we kind of didn't see it in the fourth, and I would imagine that's going to stick in Finch's craw a little bit. But, big picture, you watch what happens in OKC and Denver, and that's probably going to go 7 just because it's kind of like a prize fight. Those guys just every night those games are awesome. So if that goes 7 and the Wolves once again have, if they do close this out on Wednesday, 4 or 5 days of rest, and you've seen how good they are when they have rest. I know they slipped up game 1 against the Warriors, but they usually are pretty focused and have a good scheme when they get some time to kind of scout their opponents. So close it out on Wednesday, man. And then, I'm with you, Phil. Like, what Denver Wolves would it be, part 3, part 4? Or maybe the 2 most exciting under 25, 26 players in the league, not named Luka, with Ant and SGA going up against each other. So that would be a really good series. But it's hard to wrap your head around for everyone on this meeting that the Timberwolves have like this opportunity in front of them, because I'm so used to tonight being like, hey, I'm going to tune in for the lottery, and whatever happens on those playoff games, I'll read about in the morning.
Yeah, but forget the Wolves. It's true for the Twins, the Vikings, the Wild, and the Wolves. Like think about this. We're realistically talking about an opportunity here, and I don't think it's getting too far ahead of ourselves to point out that it is an opportunity. No one's saying it's guaranteed, right? But you're realistically talking about an opportunity with a team that's good enough, and by the way, has a star player who, at the most important moments, doesn't get overwhelmed by the moment. It's a hard conversation as a Minnesota sports fan. I don't care if it's just the Wolves. It's everything. Like we are discussing the reality that the Timberwolves, partially because, and I don't know when this happened, but the NBA at some point in time went from being a really predictable playoff sport, I felt like, to this wide open, you just have no idea. And it is weird when things start to, knock on wood a little bit here, but it is weird when things start to line up a little bit. Steph Curry gets hurt. Okay, he's hurt. Now you're punching Golden State harder, and now OKC or Denver will be incredibly tough. But to your point, Kyle, they might go 7 games. Boston, okay, that you cannot beat Boston, but the Knicks are going to take care of them, because I think Tatum is probably an Achilles. I think he's probably screwed, which is really sucks.
It looked like he grabbed his Achilles.
Yeah. And his leg, just like Kirk's did, that the lower leg like sort of twitched, and it's not good. But anyway, it's a realistic conversation that the Timberwolves are also having some good fortune as well as being a good team. So yeah, Phil, you're exactly right.
And I know timeline wise, like, it's easy to say it right now because they're 9 wins away, but there's been the majority of, especially the last 20 years, where if a Minnesota team was going to do it, for probably about 90% of that timeline in the last 20 years, I think most Minnesota sports fans would have had the Timberwolves 4th among the men's major sports to be the one to win a championship. So I think there's also something to be said about that, of like, man, this team went 18 seasons, 18 years without making the playoffs. They get their superstar in the draft lottery. He's different. He's cold-blooded. There's this different moxie about him that most Minnesota athletes don't really have. And the fact that they are 9 wins away, and Minnesota sports fans also love to do, and I don't blame them in this instance, they love to look at the path, right? Like, oh, but like, man, if we could avoid so-and-so, right? If we don't have to play, I'm not going to use Tom Brady because they're in different conferences, but like, if we don't have to play that team, we have to go to Philadelphia. I really think the Vikings could win the Super Bowl, right? Forget the path at this point. Like the Timberwolves are dominant. They just dominated the best and biggest dynasty in the NBA in the last 10 years. They kicked out LeBron James. They've kicked out Kevin Durant. They've kicked out the Joker. What they've been able to do, especially in the last calendar year, is insane. And they are, again, 9 wins away from seeing a championship, which is something I have never seen from a men's major sport in my lifetime.
On that, you said, I'm so with Dex on this, and when you said they beat the Warriors, it's like, hey, the Steph injury needs to be brought up, and it sucks, right? Like, it really does suck. Watching him warm up in Game 1 at Target Center, I was like, holy, like, I've never watched him play before, like, in person, so I was like, this is, like, basketball nerd stuff. So it sucks that he goes out, but I just don't know how you do the Minnesota sports thing of every time a Vikings miss a field goal in the 3rd quarter of the divisional round, or the Yankees hit another home run in the 8th against the Twins in the 1st round of the playoffs. And like, oh, Minnesota sports. And then not be like, hey, the Steph injury sucks, but like maybe there's like a little, like, maybe we have a chance here to kind of make our, not everything bad is going to always happen to this city and this state. So it sucks that the Warriors aren't at full strength. I don't really agree with the people that think it would have been Warriors in 5, but maybe the Wolves are getting like one chance here to kind of like make a run. And as you saw with the Tatum injury too, which again, like, just brutal to watch one sudden movement of a really athletic guy. Like, we have one of the most athletic players ever to play. And it's like, man, that would just kill your season, and it kills next season. But you don't know how long the window is. Like, the Celtics were like, they're going to be the next dynasty, and they have all their guys back. They brought back everyone, and they added some rookies. It was out like that. You know what I mean? So for the Wolves, close it out on Wednesday, and then who cares who you play in the next round? Like, you have a real chance here to do something that this franchise hasn't done in 36 years. So it's there for them, but have they learned enough from this season to take it?
We are taking some heat here in the comment section. By the way, click that like button and subscribe button if you haven't already on the Score North YouTube channel. Just focus on Oklahoma City. What are you guys talking about? Hey, we're not Timberwolves scouts here, okay? Like, if you're in the Timberwolves front office, or a scout, or someone that's job is to plan to beat Denver, Oklahoma City, yes, go do your job and make sure the team is prepared. If you're 4 idiots on microphones at 12:42 a.m. Central Time, or whatever the hell time it is where Kyle is at right now, it's kind of fun to speculate on. And the reason this came into my head is because I've always looked at Boston as, even if you get to the finals, like, Boston is kind of this dynastic team that looks like they're maybe destined to win back-to-back championships with all the talent on their roster. But, they're down 2-0 to a Knicks team. Interesting. And then as they're trying to claw their way back, they lose one of the best players in the NBA, and now they're down 3-1. Not that the Wolves would be guaranteed to beat either the Pacers or the Knicks in a 7-game series, because those are feisty, really difficult teams to beat too. But the fact that the top odds-on favorite team is about to get bounced means someone else is going to run. The Knicks are looking for their first championship since 1973. Sports Dad, the Pacers. They've been to the finals a couple times here and there. Didn't the Reggie Miller, like, in the twilight of his career, they got beat by the Lakers or something, the Jalen Rose Pacers?
Yeah.
Have the Pacers ever won a championship?
NBA, I don't think so, no.
I don't think so.
ABA, maybe?
They might have won an ABA, yeah, back in the day. But
Oklahoma City has never won a championship. Denver got theirs and are looking to add a second one for Jokic, so they've been there before. But the guy who built that team is building this Timberwolves team right now. So Celtics going away opens up for someone to walk through a door they've never walked through before.
Exactly.
Why not the Timberwolves?
Exactly. And
I think, yeah.
Oh, I was going to say, I think it's also a fair discussion. Like, no one's saying the Western Conference Finals will potentially be incredibly difficult, okay? But that doesn't mean that the Wolves are destined to lose. I will say this. I mean, I think the loss, in retrospect now, I believe the loss to the Mavericks in the Western Conference Finals last spring helps this team, because Ant went to school on what it takes to get past that. Like that's the thing, is there are learning steps along the way. And in my opinion, a big one for Ant was the realization of just how tough the playoffs are. They are a second season that drains you far more than the 82 games that you play to get there. So am I counting on it? Like, am I counting on a finals berth, a championship? No. Do I think it's a realistic discussion with what this team has? Absolutely. And as we've seen with a bunch of teams too, knock on wood for now, the Wolves are healthy. Like, that's the other thing. Can you stay? If you can stay healthy, guess what? Playoffs in every sport, this is true across the board. Football for sure, hockey for sure, basketball, Kyle, is attrition. It's attrition. You go look at teams that win championships, and what happens? Their best players ordinarily are healthy. You go look at teams that are really good and don't win championships, lots of times, their best players are hurt. But don't, like, this whole thing of, well, this team didn't have that guy and that. No, this is what happens. A year from now, we could be looking at a case where Ant gets hurt in the first round. And guess what? You're probably screwed then. But that's how playoffs work. So the conversation, in my opinion, is very real. It's realistic. And do not scoff at good fortune. Do not scoff at good health, because it's certainly not guaranteed on a yearly basis.
To answer the question of what the hell are we doing, I played a ton of Super Mario 3 growing up, and like I could never get past level 7. I think there's 90 levels. Just the fact that we're even having a moment to talk about 9 wins away, like, can we just, like, once I got to level 8 in that game, I was like, hell yeah, man, like, I'm good. There was 82 more to go, and I was probably going to get my heart ripped out, and maybe they get swept in the next round, or they do sustain an injury. But the fact that this team continues, I mean, they were the 6th seed that everyone picked against in the round 1, and now in this series, before they were favorites, but then Steph played 13 good minutes, and then the Wolves were like, the Wolves are probably going to get swept if Steph didn't get hurt. So enjoy the moment, the fact that they could pull off something that, again, I think this win, and a gutsy win, but one that actually lived up to their identity on the night of the NBA lottery, which was like Christmas for Timberwolves fans for like 25 years, is not lost upon me.
Nico Harrison, by the way, what a brilliant 4 months of GMing the Dallas Mavericks, rolling the dice on the 1.7% chance to replace a $70 million Luka contract, $300 million in total value with Cooper Flag. Nice job there.
The conspiracy theories circulating on X are absolutely fantastic.
Yeah,
it's gonna suck when they trade for Giannis, or the Spurs trade for Giannis. And it's just like every good player is in the Western Conference, and the best team in the East is like the Hornets.
Yeah,
we got to move.
Some people wondering too about just nitpicks here. Cole was asking about nitpicks. So to put a bow on this episode, anything just to balance out this championship talk and positivity here. Nitpicks for you guys going into Game 5, Judd.
Nitpicks going into Game 5. Well, I've got 2 things. One is I would like to see a little bit more consistency fourth quarter. Like Finchy, for the most part, left the regulars in, and we didn't see, but that's a nitpick. Here's my concern nitpick, though. I do have one genuine concern about Game 5, and it's this. If the Wolves start to pull away, watch your back. Draymond Green will try to do something stupid.
Dude, he tried to choke DiVincenzo tonight.
I know.
Almost RKO'd him.
The
announcers didn't even bring it up. It was crazy.
I am legitimately concerned, though, like about Ant, about Gobert. I mean, he will do something malicious and vicious, and that concerns me because he would love nothing more, I think, than to take a starter out for the next series. And I don't think he can control himself. So that's not a nit, but it's a genuine concern in my notes because this is the stuff I worry about.
It feels like they might, and what Ant was it? Ant that had the quote in like February or March, like we're our own worst enemy. Not to quote the band Lit, but they're their own worst enemy at times. Even tonight when Ant picks up the 5th foul, and he's still like he gets taken out of the game, he's still chirping the refs like Ant, just go sit down, man. Just go sit down. You're up 18 points. Yes, this would be the chance that Golden State could have to pull away. But don't shoot yourselves in the foot. I think that would be, like, could Nas have some better performances? Dante ended up having a couple nice shots there at the end. But in general, I think it's them literally sabotaging their own selves than I am about Golden State figuring out a way here to miraculously pull off 3 straight wins.
I'll throw DiVincenzo out as a nitpick. I mean, he does still bring some DiVincenzo things, even when the shot isn't falling. But the numbers are pretty damning in these postseason games. So coming into the game tonight, he was at 30% from the field and 20% from 3. He did wind up going 2 for 4 from 3, so those numbers are going to go up. But the biggest thing was his minutes were shipwrecking the Wolves going into tonight's game. The Wolves were actually 20 points better per 100 possessions without DiVincenzo on the court through the first series and a half, which, he was playing so well for like the last 3 months of the regular season. And then tonight, in the first half, they were a -10, I believe it was, or a -12 with him on the court. and they were plus double digits with him off the court. And I thought he was better in the second half, and he did some good things. But you got at some point here, if you are going to go on to win a championship, it's certainly not going to be with DiVincenzo being essentially unplayable for stretches like he's been against the Lakers and the Warriors. So DDV is my nitpick. Kyle.
11 turnovers in the fourth. I know I sound like a wet blanket all of a sudden, but that to me is a big picture of attention to detail is still missing a little bit, and watching OKC how they defend Denver. Like, if you do want to advance and you're 9 games away from a title, like, you got to clear some of that stuff up, because one thing that this team really struggles with is they don't have anyone to dribble the basketball up the court when Julius or Mike is sitting. And you saw that tonight with Nas, and you saw that with Dante. So a little scared about that. Golden State, what Judd said, like on Wednesday, if it gets away from it, you do think Golden State will play hard. So that's, again, something to close out. But just a really awesome performance tonight, and it was cool to see. I mean, it's like, May 12th? They've lost 2 playoff games. Like, that's crazy. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, 9 games away, but like, dude, they've lost 2 playoff games in, like, I don't know, the last 3.5 weeks. So playing pretty good basketball, but to close it out, I think you have to be a little tighter and then look ahead to 2 awesome opponents.
Boys, good session here. Good session. 3 games to 1. The Timberwolves are 1 win away from back-to-back trips to the Western Conference Finals, and 9 wins away from something that makes a lot of people really uncomfortable to talk about, that we'll try our best not to jinx. But he's Kyle Teige. He's the sports dad, Judd Zulgad. Our executive producer, Declan Goff. I am Phil Mackey, and Flagrant Howls is a Timberwolves lifestyle podcast. See you guys.